I've always been a skeptic. I never believed in the supernatural and always tried to rationalize weird stories. But what happened to me 2 years ago still haunts me, and I've never been able to explain it. I'm 18 now, but this happened when I was 16. I lived on the outskirts of a city near a small river. After heavy flooding in 2019, the river expanded and came close to our house. Since the river was blocked by a dam, it didn't flow much. It was just still water. Because I had to commute 2 hours for after-school classes, I started taking nightly walks to clear my head. We had no neighbors nearby, so it always felt quiet and safe. During those walks, I'd often see fishermen out on boats with lanterns, so when I saw a lantern on the water one night, I didn't think much of it, but it kept showing up, every night, a little closer than before. I could never see who or what was holding it. Then one night, it was really close. I looked more carefully and realized there was nothing around it. Just a floating lantern in the dark water. I ran to get my parents, but when we came back, it was gone. They thought I was joking, but I kept seeing it, night after night. Eventually, it didn't scare me. In fact, it gave me this warm, comforting feeling, like I knew it. I even stopped listening to music on my walks. I would just stand there and stare at it for over an hour. About 10 days later, it came right up to the edge of the water, and that's when I saw it. There was a figure holding the lantern, pitch black, darker than night. Its body was twisted and wrong, very short legs, extremely long arms. Its face had only one eye, a glowing, bright red eye. But instead of fear, I felt drawn to it. I wanted to go with it. I couldn't control my body. I walked into the water, following it. I didn't care that I couldn't breathe. I just wanted to be with it. The last thing I remember was losing consciousness. I woke up in my bed. My parents told me they had come outside when I didn't return and found me walking into the river. They called out to me, but I didn't respond. My dad rushed in and pulled me out. I had passed out by then. They kept asking why I'd done it, but I couldn't explain. Every time I tried, it felt like my tongue froze. After that night, I never saw it again. But I've never walked near the river since. Even in daylight, even with people around, I just can't. This is the first time I've talked about it in 2 years. This is the first time I've ever posted on Reddit. I had an experience when I was very young and wanted to share it. I've told close friends and family before, like a handful. But even if they say they believe you, you can tell that they don't. This happened somewhere around the age of 3 or 4 years old. My parents divorced when I was 2, and my mom didn't get remarried until I was 4. I wasn't in my crib anymore at this point and was in my own bed. At this point, it was just my mom, sister, 1 year older, and I in this house. Everyone had their own bedroom on the first floor of the house, and it had a basement. I have so many memories from that first house, even some from before this event. I still even have a couple memories of when my parents were still together. Even though I was very young, this is a true story. I haven't had anything paranormal or unexplainable since then happen. It's a memory that pops up every so often, and I just wanted someone to hear it. I also want to know if anyone else had a similar experience. This took place in Emporia, Kansas in the mid-1990s. It all started in the middle of the night when I felt my bed shake, move. It wasn't nothing more than just one good shake. This woke me up, and I remember just laying in my bed a little confused. I wasn't scared at this point and was just laying there awake. I would wake up in the middle of the night around this time and go play in the basement. At this point, I wasn't scared of the dark or anything. So I was just laying there when all of a sudden I started hearing a rattle noise coming from under my bed in short bursts. The rattles were soft, normal tempo, and would have a pause in between bursts. I was confused and had an overwhelming feeling of looking underneath my bed to figure out what was going on. I leaned over my bed and took a peek. That's when I made eye contact with a gray being with big eyes that had a red tint to them. I remember them being fly-like, many lenses, and the light from the street light coming from the window was reflecting off of them. I was completely frozen in fear and was unable to move for what felt like forever. When I finally was able to lift myself back up on the bed, I was in shock. I tried to scream out for my mom, but my voice wouldn't work. I finally worked up the courage to jump off my bed as far as I could towards the light switch to turn it on. After turning on the light, I looked underneath the bed to see a baby rattle under the bed, which validated that I was hearing the rattle noises. I ran to my mom's room and tried to explain to her what happened. Obviously, she didn't believe me, and I slept in her room that night. I never knew what was underneath my bed. But a few years ago, I was watching a documentary called The Phenomenon. In that documentary, they tell the story of Virginia, Brazil UFO incident in 1996. The two women that encountered the being had an artist draw what they seen. It was exactly what I seen underneath my bed that night, and brought me some clarity. I truly believe this story is true and have nothing to gain from it. I'm mostly curious if anyone had any similar experiences, or if anyone got any ideas of why this being would do this.
When I was a kid, my step-grandparents lived in a little town up in the Oregon mountains. Their house was at the end of a dead-end street, and there was a wooden guardrail painted white with orange stripes at the end of it. There were about 5 houses total on the street, with one house in particular that was noticeably older than the rest. It was directly across the street from my step-grandparents' house. Safe to say, this house gave everyone a weird heebie-jeebie feeling. My mom and stepdad would drop me, my full-blooded sister, and my stepbrother off there from time to spend time with my grandparents. I was about 5 years younger than my brother and sister. We loved our grandparents. They were always full of adventure and willing to take us out to do fun things in nature. We would hike, pick berries to make pies, have BBQs. It was always smiles and fun when we went over there. One day, my sister, my stepbrother, and I were playing outside. It was close to dark, probably around dusk, when we heard the gate of the yard close. This was a metal chain-link gate around the house. It was a girl, about our age, normal-looking, glasses, kind of more on the tomboy side, a little older than all of us. She said, "Hi," and that her name was Raquel. She asked if she could play basketball with us. We had no idea anyone even lived in that house because we'd never seen anyone go in or out, and this was about our 4th time visiting our grandparents. I'm sure our grandparents knew, but they never had a reason to tell us since we didn't ask. Being the kids we were, we said, "Yeah," and we all just started playing. Just kids being kids. Nothing seemed odd about this girl for about a year, but one day things just changed in her. I remember the first weird incident my sister, brother, and I witnessed. We were up pretty late playing video games on the Nintendo 64. Our grandparents had splurged on us and bought a lot of candy and told us to have fun. So we did. Around 1 a.m., we were all getting kind of tired, just chilling and talking while the game was on the pause screen. The screen was black with yellow letters, so the room was pretty dark. We heard the gate across the street rustling, but it didn't sound like it opened. I picked my head up to look outside, but I was a little scared for some reason, so I didn't fully raise my head above the windowsill. It was Raquel. I could slightly see her face as she was about to hop the fence again. She was wearing red plaid pajamas, a black hoodie, and a backpack, but weirdly, she wasn't wearing any shoes. It had rained earlier that day, so everything was wet. She hopped the fence and started walking to the wooden guardrail at the end of the street. At this point, my sister and brother were both staring out the window too. We were all a little freaked out because she continued walking toward the guardrail, hopped over it, and walked straight into the forest. We were confused and scared. Why would she do this? We chalked it up to maybe she was going to drink or smoke. I mean, she was a little older than us, about 16. But it was 1 a.m. in a town in the forest. Eventually, my brother and sister fell asleep, but I didn't. I stayed up until about 3:30 a.m. to see if I would hear the rustle of the gate again, but I never did. It seemed like she never came back that night. The next day, we all got up to go to the lake. Around 10:30 or 11 a.m., my grandparents gave me a bag to take to the trash before we left. As I was walking out, I looked across the street and saw Raquel sitting on a chair on her patio. There was a full glass of what looked like reddish liquid sitting in front of her. I waved, but she just had this disgusted look on her face. Like, I'm talking evil disgusted. She didn't say hi. She didn't wave. Nothing. Her hood was up, and her shoulders were shrugged up to her neck. She was staring directly at me. Nothing. Later we went back home, and we heard a story about Raquel from one of our other friends who swore he would never hang out with her again. My sister and this guy from Oregon, Cage, kind of had a crush on each other and would talk on the phone, which is how we even heard this story. Apparently Cage, a couple of friends, and Raquel were hanging out in her parents' basement smoking cigarettes, just being young teens. Two of the kids went upstairs, and Raquel stayed with Cage to finish the cigarettes. She told Cage she was going to get the others, went upstairs, closed the basement door, and turned off the light on him. He freaked out, screaming and banging on the door. Raquel had apparently locked it. The other two came back, and Raquel opened it, laughing. Cage told my sister he would never hang out over there again. Fast forward a couple of months, we visited Oregon again. Raquel seemed normal, so, being kids, we decided to hang out with her. She had built a clubhouse in the back of her house, and that was pretty much the best bribe to hang out. So we did. Everything was going great. I stood up and told them I was going outside to pee. As I stepped out and started peeing, I saw Raquel come out. She closed the clubhouse door, shoved a stick between the latch to jam the lock, and unplugged the extension cord. I could hear my brother and sister yelling, "Dude, what the fuck? Let us out!" Raquel had this crazy devilish look in her eyes and walked straight toward me. I was terrified. She walked up to me and said, "If you open that clubhouse, I will hurt you." Immediately I ran around her, grabbed the stick, and opened the clubhouse. I told both my sister and brother what she said. My sister grabbed Raquel by the shirt, threw her on the ground, and yelled at her. Raquel had this weird, sinful grin on her face the whole time, like she liked it. We told our grandparents right away. They took matters into their own hands and went over to confront her parents. During the conversation, Raquel's mom admitted that she had been acting strange for the past couple of months. She said Raquel would spend long nights in the basement but brushed it off as just being a teen. She said they eventually confiscated most of her stuff as punishment and found she had been playing with a Ouija board. She burst into tears in front of my grandparents and said her daughter wasn't the same anymore. She said they'd find Raquel throwing up in the middle of the night from sleepwalking and eating, to the point of projectile vomiting. My grandmother said, "Please keep that away from me and my family. I'm very sorry. We have to go." As we left the porch, I swear I saw Raquel watching us from the horizontal basement window. Except, I don't know if I was just a kid, but her eyes didn't look like her eyes. They looked like a cat's eyes. I remember the feeling I got when I saw that. The goosebumps I felt then, I can still feel them to this day. My mom and stepdad split up a couple of years after all this, so we fell away from that side of the family and never went back to Oregon. But one day, 15 years later, I told this story to my fiance's family at a cabin, and randomly, a number from Oregon called me. I truly didn't want to answer. I thought, oh shit, there's absolutely no way. But my fiance's mom insisted, just to make sure I wasn't pulling off the best scary prank ever. I answered, and immediately, a loud buzzing ring started. It lasted for about 3 seconds before the line cut. Safe to say, we were all scared. I truly think Raquel was possessed. She would talk to that board in the basement, in the forest, and God knows where else. I often think about what happened to her family, and to that house. I'm haunted by the thought of going back to Oregon to this day. I hope I never have to.
This happened a few years back. I was doing long haul, mostly cross-country routes, the kind that take you through vast stretches of nothing. You know the ones, where the radio turns to static for hours, and the only sign of life is the occasional pair of headlights going the other way, miles apart. I was young, eager for the miles, the money, didn't mind the solitude, or so I thought. The route I was on took me across a long, desolate stretch of highway that ran between the borders of two large governmental territories. I don't want to say exactly where, but think big, empty spaces, Lots of trees, not much else. It was notorious among drivers for being a dead zone. No signal, no towns for 100 miles either side, and prone to weird weather. Most guys tried to hit it during daylight, but schedules are schedules. Mine had me crossing it deep in the night. I remember the feeling. Utter blackness outside the sweep of my headlights. The kind of dark that feels like it's pressing in on the cab. The only sounds were the drone of the diesel engine, the hiss of the air brakes now and then, and the rhythmic thrum of the tires on asphalt. Hypnotic, too hypnotic. I'd been driving for about 10 hours, with a short break a few states back. Coffee was wearing off. The dashboard lights were a dull green glow, comforting in a way, but also making the darkness outside seem even more absolute. My eyelids felt like they had lead weights attached. You fight it, you know? Slap your face, roll down the window for a blast of cold air, crank up whatever music you can find that hasn't dissolved into static. I was doing all of that. It must have been around 2 or 3 a.m. I was in that weird state where you're not quite asleep, but not fully awake either. Like your brain is running on low power mode. The white lines on the road were starting to blur together, stretching and warping. Standard fatigue stuff. I remember blinking hard, trying to refocus. That's when I saw it, or thought I saw it. Just a flicker at the edge of my headlights, on the right shoulder of the road, small, low to the ground. For a split second, I registered a shape, vaguely human-like, and then it was gone, swallowed by the darkness as I passed. My first thought? Deer, or a coyote, common enough. But it hadn't moved like an animal. It had been upright. My brain, sluggish as it was, tried to process it. Too small for an adult. Too still for an animal startled by a rig. Then the logical part, the part that was still trying to keep me safe on the road, chimed in. You're tired, seeing things, happens. And I almost accepted that. I really did. Shook my head, took a swig of lukewarm water from the bottle beside me, kept my eyes glued to the road ahead. The image, though, it kind of stuck, a small, upright shape, like a child. No way, I told myself. Out here, middle of nowhere, middle of the night, impossible. Kids don't just wander around on interterritorial highways at 3 a.m. It had to be a trick of the light, a bush, my eyes playing games. I've seen weirder things born of exhaustion. Shadows that dance, trees that look like figures. It's part of the job when you're pushing limits. I drove on for maybe another 30 seconds, the image fading, my rational mind starting to win, just a figment. Then I glanced at my passenger side mirror. Habit, always checking, and my blood went cold. Not just cold, it felt like it turned to slush. There, illuminated faintly by the red glow of my trailer lights, receding into the distance, was the reflection of a small figure, standing on the shoulder of the road, exactly where I'd thought I'd seen something. It wasn't a bush, it wasn't a shadow, it was small, and it was definitely standing there, unmoving, as my truck pulled further and further away. My heart started hammering against my ribs. This wasn't fatigue. This was real. There was someone, something back there. And it looked tiny. Every instinct screamed at me, danger, wrong, keep going. But another voice, the one that makes us human, I suppose, whispered something else. A kid? Alone out here? What if they're hurt? Lost? I fought with myself for a few seconds that stretched into an eternity. The image in the mirror was getting smaller, fainter. If I didn't act now, they'd be lost to the darkness again. God, the thought of leaving a child out there, if that's what it was. Against my better judgment, against that primal urge to just floor it, I made a decision. I slowed the rig, the air brakes hissing like angry snakes. Pulled over to the shoulder, the truck groaning in protest. Put on my hazards, their rhythmic flashing cutting into the oppressive blackness. Then, I did what you're never supposed to do with a full trailer on a narrow shoulder. I started to reverse. Slowly, carefully, my eyes flicking between the mirrors, trying to keep the trailer straight, trying to relocate that tiny figure. The crunch of gravel under the tires sounded unnaturally loud. It took a minute, maybe two, but it felt like an hour. The red glow of my taillights eventually washed over the spot again, and there it was, a kid. I stopped the truck so my cab was roughly alongside them, maybe 10 feet away, switched on the high beams, hoping to get a better look, and also to make myself clearly visible as just a truck, not something else. The kid was small, really small. I'd guess maybe 6, 7 years old. Hard to tell in the glare. They were just standing there on the very edge of the gravel shoulder, right where the trees began. The woods pressed in close on this stretch of road, tall, dark pines and dense undergrowth that looked like a solid black wall just beyond the reach of my lights. The kid wasn't looking at me. They were facing sort of parallel to the road, just walking, slowly, like they were on a stroll, completely oblivious to the massive 18-wheeler that had just pulled up beside them, engine rumbling, lights blazing. They were wearing what looked like pajamas, thin, light-colored pajamas, in the chill of the night. No coat, no shoes that I could see. My mind reeled. This was wrong. So many levels of wrong. I killed the engine. The sudden silence was almost deafening, amplifying the crickets, the rustle of leaves in the woods from a breeze I couldn't feel in the cab. My heart was still thumping, a weird mix of fear and adrenaline and a dawning sense of responsibility. I rolled down the window. The night air hit me, cold and damp, carrying the scent of pine and wet earth. "Hey!" I called out. My voice sounded hoarse, too loud in the quiet. "Hey, kid!" No response. They just kept walking, one small, bare foot in front of the other, at a pace that was taking them absolutely nowhere fast. Their head was down slightly. I couldn't see their face properly. "Kid, are you okay?" I tried again, louder this time. Slowly, so slowly, the kid stopped. They didn't turn their head fully, just sort of angled it a fraction, enough that I could see a pale sliver of cheek in the spill of my headlights. Still not looking at me, still ignoring the multi-ton machine idling beside them. A prickle of unease ran down my spine. Not the normal kind of unease. This was deeper, colder. Animals act weird sometimes, but kids... A lost kid should be scared, relieved, something. This one was nothing. "What are you doing out here all alone?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, friendly. Like you're supposed to with a scared kid, even though this one didn't seem scared at all. It's the middle of the night. Silence. Just the sound of their bare feet scuffing softly on the gravel as they took another step, then another. As if my presence was a minor inconvenience, a background noise they were choosing to ignore. This wasn't right. My internal alarm bells were clanging louder now. My hand hovered near the gear stick. Part of me wanted to slam it into drive and get the hell out of there. But the image of this tiny child, alone, possibly in shock, I couldn't just leave. Could I? "Where are your parents?" I pushed, my voice a bit sharper than I intended. "Are you lost?" Finally, the kid stopped walking completely. They turned their head just a little more, still not looking directly at my cab, more towards the front of my truck, into the glare of the headlights. I could see their face a bit better now, pale, featureless in the harsh light like a porcelain doll. Small, dark smudges that might have been eyes. No expression, none, not fear, not sadness, not relief. Just blank, an unreadable slate, then a voice, small, thin, like the rustle of dry leaves. Lost, just that one word, it hung in the air between us.
I don't know what I expected next. Maybe for them to ask for help, to cry, to run toward the truck. Something human. Instead, the kid turned back toward the trees and began walking. Slow, deliberate steps, straight into the woods. "Wait," I shouted, panic rising in my chest. "Don't go in there, it's not safe." No response. The child didn't even flinch, just kept walking, bare feet silent on the soft ground now, swallowed by the shadows between the trees. I stared, frozen. I should have jumped out, should have run after them, but something in me, deep, primal, refused to let me leave the cab. My hand gripped the door handle so tight my knuckles turned white, but I didn't move. Couldn't move. Because just before the child vanished into the blackness, I saw something else, behind them, further into the woods, higher up, eyes, not just one pair, several, reflections, like when a deer catches your headlights. But these were too high off the ground, and they didn't blink, just stared, unmoving, watching. And suddenly, I knew. That kid wasn't lost. They were leading something, or being led. I don't remember putting the truck in gear. Don't remember turning around. Only the roar of the engine, the squeal of tires on asphalt, and the rising tide of sheer, unfiltered terror as I tore down that highway like the devil himself was giving chase. I didn't stop until I hit the next way station, hours later. By then, the sky was lightening, the sun just starting to edge over the horizon. Other trucks were there. People, civilization. I got out of the cab and vomited behind my trailer. I reported what I'd seen. Kind of. Said I thought I saw a child on the side of the road, gave the approximate location. State troopers went out, searched the area. Nothing. No footprints. No reports of missing kids. No sign anyone had been out there. I told myself I'd imagined it. Stress. Fatigue. Maybe a dream I'd half slipped into while driving. But I stopped running that route. Asked for reassignment. And every so often I still check that mirror. Just in case.